What is up, my cutouts? Long time no see, Cardboard Ninja here, coming at you with the planned balance changes of the upcoming update dev vlog, August 28, 2023. So, it looks as though the devs finally decided to start making some changes. Let's take a look at what they're going to do. These, of course, are not subject to change. They might not make it. Jerk, the standard. So, for step one, the special parts. These are teal parts. These are usually revolving around cabins and things like that that typically have just recently been moved to the teal tier and given perks. And the first one up is a jockey. The maximum bonus of the perk is gained in 8 seconds instead of 10 seconds earlier, and the perk bonus resets after 6 seconds instead of 4 seconds earlier. So for those of us who are wondering what it is that jockey does, because you might not know that, as you are near enemies, it charges up, as you know, and you gain a stack of it. Apparently, 1 stack every second for 8 seconds. Anyway, for each stack that you get, you do more damage. I believe the jockey caps out at 10% damage, whereas this is basically a smaller version of the howl, and the howl caps at 20% damage, but we'll get to that later. So this is a pure buff. Obviously, it's a pure buff. The jockey and the howl, not necessarily the best cabins. Getting that 20% damage is very, very belaborious, and losing it is very, very rapid. They're basically changing that around a little bit, so you can get the perk in 8 seconds, you'll lose it in 6. It's a 2-second difference in favor of losing it, but even still, it means that you'll hold on to that perk just a little longer, and it'll be a little easier for you to get that bonus damage in. Not the best cabin, neither jockey nor howl, but that is a fair buff to either. The boom, which is a boom stick, the explosion radius was reduced by 28%. They're like, wait a minute, this is so weird. These explosive spears that have completely and totally dominating Crossout and have been always, instantaneously used to one bang any player at any given point in time. What? We're gonna try and reduce it. Reduce the likelihood of instantaneous destruction of your opponents. It will. This is a pure nerf, obviously. The damage stays the same, but the blast radius is reduced. As long as you're accurate with your lance build, this isn't going to change shit. And the reason why is as long as you aim for the cabin, and I know that sounds interesting, you're like, oh, you want to hit the cabin? No, you want to hit the frame beneath the cabin. As long as you aim for the cabin and you actually manage to hit the frame beneath the cabin, you'll turn them into a nugget and kill anyone in one hit. But that's still a nerf, nevertheless. The Genesis module added a 56% efficiency improvement to the list of possible upgrades for the power module. This has to do with fusions. So, for those of us who are familiar, you can fuse a lot of different things in this game. This is obviously one of the fusion options. The Genesis Microfactory gives you extra drones, just like the ammunition crates give you extra ammunition, but the Genesis Microfactory never had an option to grant you the chance of getting additional drones from as a fusion, and now that's possible. They're not reverting previous fusions. So if you fused Genesis Microfactory before, you don't get it, but it's now on the list. So now you can actually get perfect fused Genocide if you are a droner to hold even more drones. Moving on to the epic parts, the Catalina. Pure nerf, mass limit reduced from 8,650 to 8,500. That's pretty brutal. 500 kilograms can be rough, especially considering many people fuse it for additional mass, so that nerfs that as well. The damage of all mounted weapons is initially reduced by 17% instead of 15%. Ooh. All right, so I'll just read what they said. The Catalina has firmly established itself as a versatile cabin with a fairly powerful perk. Cabin shows consistency consistently high stats on all power score levels. I assume that what they mean by that is, I was wondering where they're getting stats. It must mean that it's winning a lot of games and producing a lot of damage. And therefore, we're making minor adjustments that will affect the overall durability of our vehicles. That's the mass reduction, as well as the total damage of mounted weapons. And that's the perk. So here's the deal. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. This 15% is much larger than you think it is. Most people think it's, you get a total of 60% bonus damage or 70 or some crap like that. That's not the case. This is because the 15% is off the top, whereas the damage stacks that you gain are off the bottom, which is to say the reduced damage. So in reality, pre-nerf, this is a nerf, pre-nerf Catalina does 153% damage at 10 stacks. I think it's 153 or 154%. I'm not going to go look. But at 10 stacks, that's your damage bonus. It's basically a 53 or 54% damage bonus. But the only reason why it's so low is because of the fact that because of this insane 15%. By reducing the amount of damage you deal to 17, or by taking 17% off base damage, that's going to reduce the bonus damage to, I'm guessing, because I don't have a calculator on me and I haven't, I could just test it when this comes out. And in fact, I'll test it on the test server later and get, more accurate numbers. But that's going to probably bring this under 50% damage bonus at 10 stacks. It's probably between like 45. It's a pretty big nerf. The days. Everyone loves the days. Drive in, turn off people's stuff. They're nerfing the days. And now instead of 2 seconds of your weapons not functioning, it's 1.5 seconds, and the cooldown has been increased to 20 seconds from 16. Long story short, you're using it too quickly, and it was making it so people couldn't play the video game. Dogs, fire dogs, if there are any other type of dogs out there, they were using the days and they were shutting people down, so they're nerfing it. Lancelot, same verse, second verse same as the first with the boom, explosion radius reduction. Howl, second verse same as the first with the jockey. They're getting the same buff, so the Howl gets its perk in 8 instead of 10 and loses it in 6 instead of 4. The AC64 Jewel, for those of you who do not know, it's one of the faster firing autocannons. I think it's like third fastest firing autocannon in the game. Apparently they're increasing its durability by about 28 points or so. I don't know. They're increasing it by a lot of durability because it can get slapped off your build. But also, they reduce the time to the autocannon's cooldown by 25%. So one of the things is the Jewel's perk is that when you're driving, the weapon will cool down faster or overheat slower. I forget which one. The long story short, once the Jewel overheats, it takes forever for that thing to come back up. So they're buffing that. I don't know if people were bringing, and they should have been bringing, Shivers, but AC64 Jewel needed a nerf. Even with Shivers, it took forever. So it's a good buff. Big Ram increased the speed in leg mode from 45 to 55 kilometers an hour. I don't know how to feel about this. The comment is, in the current realities, Big Rams cannot compete with ML200 and Guridia. In order to increase their their competitiveness, we've decided to increase their speed in the leg mode. I don't know why they would say that. So here's the deal. ML200s are dog shit in standard game mode. So if you're playing standard 8v8 in PC, 6v6 on your Xbox or your console, your PlayStation, ML200s are death sentence. You're going to die. They're going to kill you. The entire enemy team is going to crest the hill, and you're going to be alone, you're going to die. So they're useless there. However, in coordinated clan wars environments, the ML200s are not bad. So that's the reason why they get like around C tier in my movement part tier list. The Guridia are just good at all times. You know it, I know it, everyone knows it. They're just good at all times. They're fast. You want to, what you expect a spider legs to be, when like years and years ago. So the Guridia got it going on. They're just good. The Big Rams are like a mix between the two. The idea behind the Big Ram was that you would swap to spider mode when you're in combat, and you'd use wheel mode to keep up with your team. That works out just fine. I have no idea why they're increasing the speed of leg mode by 10 kilometers an hour to match the ML200s. All that does is shit on ML200s. But buff to the Big Ram. Continuing on, the Step Spider. So for those of us who didn't know, the Step Spider was converted into a rocket cabin for whatever reason. And it has had middling reviews. I'm being very diplomatic as a rocket cabin. Middling reviews at best. So let's see what they're changing. The perk now reduces rocket damage, and yes, the perk it presently has reduces rocket damage by 15%, up from previously 20%. This is a 5% damage increase to those who use the Step Spider with rockets. So that is a buff. Cabin speed is increased from 68 to 75 kilometers an hour. That is a very, very, very large buff because with cabin top speed comes acceleration. So that's huge. Mass reduced from 29 to 1,300 kilograms. That's a buff because now it is lighter. The durability was reduced for 445 to 390. That is irrelevant. Mass limit reduced from 14,500 to 12,500. That's a nerf. So if you're building near the Step Spider's limit, well, I think its days as a tsunami spider is over. I mean, you could still find people using Step Spider cabins with tsunamis and things like that. You could even find bots that do it. That's pretty much the death knell in that. Without that mass, you can't do it. Originally, the Step Spider, I believe, was the second most massive medium cabin right behind the Nova. Yeah, now I don't think it is. I believe now the second has taken. I think the Ghost is now number 2, with that change. The power is reduced by 10%. They did that because of the fact that it's increasing its top speed. So as you get more top speed, you get less power, which means that power has more of an effect on your acceleration. This is actually a good thing. I know that doesn't sound true. You're gonna have to trust me. You're just gonna have to trust me, because that means that if you're using the cabin with the Colossus, that 50, and you have power fused Colossus, then you're increasing its power, but it's also its acceleration curve is greater. So even though it has less power, its acceleration curve is better. So this is actually a good change. If you want to use the step spider on hovers, like what the it's and the influence of mass on acceleration was reduced by 28%. That's sick. This is the exact same thing that was done to the Kami in reverse, because they wanted to nerf the Kami because it was so good, and it was done to the predecessor to the werewolf. I can't remember the name of the cabin because I never use it. It's the special rarity light cabin where they did this. This is actually very good. That's huge. This will make the Step Spider a lot more nimble, like a lot more nimble. And that's really good with rockets, because right now it is bad with the weapon type that it's supposed to be good with. The Argus, for those of us who don't know what the Argus does, it launches a drone. And this drone will hover over your vehicle and follow you around, much like all the other helicopter drones. But unlike the other helicopter drones, this one will ignore enemy players. It doesn't shoot at them. That's not its job. It will look around for mines. It will look around for missiles. And that is all. It will do nothing else. It will find those things. It will shoot its little Tukey laser at them. If the object has very low hit points, like let's say missiles, it'll rip right through it. If the object has any reasonable amount of hit points, like a mine, it's more or less dog shit. The Argus is dog shit at destroying mines. And it's designed to destroy mines. It's bad at it. It takes like 2 shots to pop a cap can. Yes, it fires quickly, but it can miss. Most people don't know this. The Argus's laser does not always hit. So is almost worthless against Jiboku spam. Its cooldown is too long. It's just terrible. So what they've done is they've increased the range of detection and neutralization of mines and projectiles from 30 to 60 meters. What this means is that it will fire out, well, double the distance, and it will shoot at things twice as far away. And this is the cool part, this means the Argus is actually the best mine detector in the game. For those of us who don't know, the Doppler and the Maxwell can both detect mines, albeit at a very small radius. This means that usually if you have one of those too, you'll see the mine, it'll pop up as red right before you hit the mine. That's not the best of it. But yeah, buff to the Argus, that's good. It's still not going to be great. It's still not going to be necessarily worth bringing, but it's a buff. I'll take it. The R3739 adapter, this is the 3-round burst, seems like a machine gun, but isn't, pulse rifle. They're just increasing the durability. It was getting shot off too easily, so they're giving it like nearly 50 durability. They're giving it 46 dura or so. Pretty good. The GL55 Impulse, the predecessor to the Retcher. The durability has been increased from 151 to 192. The projectile speed has been increased by 25%, and they've improved the accuracy by doing the following things. They've reduced the effect of vehicle speed on firing accuracy by 38%. Huge. The spread after a shot is reduced by 25%. Huge. And aim spot speed has been increased by double. They've doubled the aim speed. Comment: the successful implementation of the weapons perk is highly dependent on how often you hit your enemies with projectiles. That's a no-brainer. That's a no shit. The perk of the GL55 Impulse, which is stupid, is you hit someone 5 times and your 6th grenade it does like double damage. But every time you miss, it reverses the counter and you're just flailing grenades everywhere. It's crazy. So, as they said, given the particular characteristics of their flight, is not an easy task. By improving accuracy, we make it easier to use the weapons perk. An increase in durability should increase the lifetime of the grenade launcher in battle conditions. Obviously, more durability means it stays in your build longer. But yeah, as pure buff to the GL55 Impulse, you don't see these often, because in reality, most people skip them. Because they are, it's not just because their perk is bad to use, but they're awkward-ish to build with, etc. This is actually a really good buff. Like a huge buff, especially if you already have projectile speed fused impulses. It's huge. The Thresher, 8% more damage. That is the machine gun grenade launcher. It just so happens it's dog shit, and they're like, whoops, Let's try and fix that. 8% more damage. Here you go, right in your pocket. The Tusk, it is a nerf. I'll just tell you that right now. The cabin's melee damage increases by 60% for every 100 meters traveled, and it stacks up to 5 times. That's 300% damage bonus. For those of us who do not know, the Tusk is considered a melee weapon, so it actually does plus, I think, a plus 100%, plus 200% damage base. Long story short, you hit for 500% damage or so when you collide with someone with a Tusk fully charged. Presently in the game right now, all they changed was how rapidly it stacks. I believe now, presently, as I'm speaking in the game, there are 3 stacks. Each stack is 100%. Now they're changing it to 5 stacks. Each stack is 60%. And the reason why they would do this is obvious. At 5 to 6k power score, this cabin is extremely effective, and often it's the only weapon. You just use boosters. This should change. This should correct the situation, and increase the time it takes to gain the maximum bonus to damage on contact with the enemy. By the way, pro tip for those of you who are Tusk users and you're hearing this and you're like, my Tusk, no, my Tusk, ah. Let me tell you this. Use hurts. All right, continuing on. Skinner. While the weapon is active or reloading, the active time of any other skinner is reduced by 65%. This is because, obviously, infinite pulls. Have you ever been in one of those situations where you're, playing the video game and some asshole drops, I don't know, 6 mines right next to you and you're like, well, I'm not going to ride over those mines. I'm not going to. And then you hear ka-tink and you're like, welp. Time to return to the garage because you're about to die. Yeah, that's this. They're like, wait a minute. You can drag someone literally infinitely right now in Crossout. You can drag them across the map. And not just the map, you could drag them in a circle around the map. It doesn't really matter. So they're nerfing that, and they're saying you have actually a chance to escape, because any other skinners other than the first skinner is going to have a reduced duration. And this is not going to affect at all a single skinner. They mentioned that here. So if you just have one skinner, this change, you won't even see this change. If you have 2 or more skinners, you'll see the change because of the fact that you won't be able to drag someone forever. Up to the legendary parts, the M32 Vindicator. Oh, the Vindicator. For those unfamiliar, it is a front-firing machine gun, and as a front-firing machine gun, this is unique in that it has 2 barrels. Miniguns have multiple barrels, but this is the only weapon in the entire game that I'm aware of that is multi-barreled and fires from both barrels simultaneously. That's right. Some people are about to say, oh, but what about the Mastodon? Both barrels simultaneously, as in the exact same times. So you click once, you fire 2 shots. It's just great at spraying down cover. It's just a great gun in general. But let's see what they're doing. They're increasing the durability, as I said, from 248 to 293. Huge durability increase. And the protection from the perk is increased from 40% to 50%. Woo! That's a spicy meatball. That's spicy. They're making Vindicators very difficult to remove now. They say both for frontal machine guns, to which both for machine guns and frontal machine guns, to which the Vindicator belongs, and in comparison to all other machine guns of legendary rarity, this weapon has far too low survivability in battles. I think that survivability has to do with how you mount them. Ultimately, most people mount Vindicators. You try not to mount them over and under, which is something that you would do with other front-facing guns, but you would usually spread out your Vindicators around your build. And the reason that you do this is to make sure someone can't just shoot them off all at once. But this means that you can't put them on an Omori, for example, right? You compare that to other guns, which are all Omomori'd up, like, I don't know, fucking Punishers, and you can see the reason why it would seem the Vindicator has less durability, but I don't know if it does, but it's probably more easily sniped because of the fact that the only true build that I've seen that effectively utilizes Vindicators are the Vindicator Spiders. And you haven't seen many of those recently, but they're still solid. I actually ran with a friend, and he whipped out his Vindy Spider and just shreked, because they still shrek. But good news, Vindicators are going to be sticking around for a long, long time. Yokozuna. Now the perk works similarly to the perk of the cohort. When activated, the cabin releases up to 3 drones, which increase the power of the cabins of nearby visible allies. Wow. The comment is the cabin now becomes more team-oriented, more useful for you and your allies, as it allows you to activate the bonus for more players. So all of that is true, but none of that is why that's overpowered. That's crazy good. That's crazy good because you don't have to turn your camera out, look at your ally, and click. Even if it doesn't even matter. That's crazy. That is crazy. That's great. That is an amazing buff for the Yokozuna. Holy shit. Actually, That's amazing. Imagine CW teams where you've got one guy rocking the Yokozuna, one guy rocking cohorts. You've got your heavy cabs, and Zuna just pops that so everyone gets bonus speed and power. That's crazy. That is crazy. That's really good. This is actually a really, 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 really good perk. That's a really good perk. I don't know. Like, it doesn't seem like the Yokozuna is that good of a cabin, one would assume, but that's huge. Like, start of a match, pop that. All of a sudden, like 3 randos on your team can get into the fight faster. Stay near your team. It's crazy. That's actually a really good perk. That's a really good. Really good buff. The Fortune, now the weapon rotates around its axis, and rotation speed has been increased by 25%. This is a pure buff. The comment is the changes make the weapon more comfortable to use and expands the list of movement parts with which it can be used effectively. What this means is it's presently on hovers. Fortune hovers roll around and slap people, they just slap people around, or Omnis will roll around and slap people in the face. Standard stuff, right? Well, now this will rotate around its axis. I believe that means that it's now 360 degrees. I don't think it's fixed anymore. Pretty sure that what they're saying is this is no longer a fixed weapon. So that's a nerf to a couple of builds. So, like, let's say you were using Fortunes and the Icebox or something. But if that means that the Fortune now works kind of like, I don't know, the Ripper, I mean, all of this is a pure buff. It's a pure buff regardless. Even if you have a current build, no one said you had to change your current build. It just means that your weapons are going to rotate 25% faster. Well done. That's just sick. The Machinist Cabin. Oh, the Machinist Cabin. The tonnage has been increased from 9,100 to 12,000 kilograms. Tonnage is just your active tonnage. It's not your maximum. It's just what, the movement parts grant, etc. This edit should make the cabin less demanding to the amount of mounted movement parts. It will increase the mobility of the vehicle with the Machinist Cabin and free a bigger amount of mass for the installation of other parts. This is true. You don't have to bring as many movement parts now. That's pretty good. So for those of us who do not know, the Machinist, if I recall correctly, is Thomas Arne's favorite cabin. Anyone who knows who Thomas Arne is, irrelevant. Doesn't really matter. Deep cuts here. It doesn't really matter. Long story short, this is the cabin that has been receiving a sequence of buffs recently. The Machinist's last buff, if I recall correctly, they changed the geometry so that there were weld points in the front, so it's not entirely freaking useless. And then before that, they changed the perk so that the perk wasn't entirely useless. So yeah, they're very, very slowly bringing the Machinist into D tier because it was already D tier. It's not getting out of D tier, but good on you. I mean, these are decent buffs. To be honest, the Yokozuna is much better than the Machinist, and with this perk, that actually shoves the Yokozuna up on a tier list if one were inclined to be making one. The Chronos. So for those of us who don't know, the Chronos is the most recent cabin introduced into Crossout in this battle pass, and the perk of the Chronos says that it's very, very, very slowly heals all parts attached to any of the nodes. However, if you take any damage, that speed is reduced to 1/4 speed. This is the equivalent of turning the perk off, basically. It's not going to do anything to heal your build. According to this, new patch notes, now taking damage doesn't affect the part restoration rate. That's a slow clap. This is obvious. So, had they learned nothing from the Master Cabin? That's the real question on the table. So the Master Cabin was the first cabin to introduce healing parts, healing nodes, and things like that to Crossout. The Master Cabin can restore 50% of the durability of anything that's attached to over 10 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever, doesn't matter. But when it's done healing, it heals 50%. The issue in Crossout is damage is dealt by the boatloads. Like, have you played Crossout? Just use any weapon. Slap someone 5 times with a cricket and look at that number be quad digit. You can't keep up with that, right? And that's fine. That makes sense. Offense in every video game, and just like in real life, has to be higher than defense. Otherwise, you're invulnerable, and there's no such thing as invulnerability, right? So that's fine and fair. The Chronos healed 30% from full charge. So if you had a fully charged Chronos perk, you activate it, it will heal 30% of a weapon or armor or anything attached to it. And if you took damage, you basically can just throw that, you can just pack that shit right up and walk away because it's not going to do anything. It doesn't do anything. So removing that nerf to its part restoration rate when you take damage is a good thing. It's pure buff. Chronos needs it. It's not going to affect much in Crossout, though I will have something upcoming about the Chronos, so be on the lookout for that. Because the Chronos is actually not a bad cabin. The No-Thung, there's your nerf. Anybody who thought the No-Thung wasn't going to get nerfed, you're wrong. You're wrong, son. You're wrong. Why? Because No-Thung does the most damage of any machine gun per bullet, other than, of course, the Reaper and the Miller, because those aren't really machine guns. They're miniguns, and they have physical projectile, jerk, whatever. Of hit scan laser machine guns, the No-Thung does the most per damage per individual bullet, and so they're nerfing it right where it hurts on its damage. It's going to reduce damage by 7%, and the perk's bonus damage, which is for the first 5 shots after you have overheated, you do 100% damage. So basically those first 5 shots are as though you fired 10 whole shots. They're changing that to 80%. It's just a nerf. No-Thung's standard machine gun is going to be good anyway. It's just reducing the DPS. Combine this, however, the No-Thung's nerf, with the nerf to the Catalina. Anyway, continuing on, Omori. For those of us who are unfamiliar with the Omori is a defensive module. It has nodes on it, and anything attached to the nodes takes reduced damage. How much reduced damage? 50% reduced damage, and the 50% damage that that gets absorbed or goes into the ether goes onto the Omomori's damage shield. Presently, in the game, if you're using the Omori and you're able to dodge and dip, dive, and weave in and out of combat and shoot people, you can more or less keep that bonus up at all times, which means that your weapons just basically have double damage, or double durability. It's very strong. Everybody wants one. It's why the Omori was worth, even before it was used to make relics, it was worth 7,000 coins. Everyone wants one. You can't have one. You can't have this. It's just a great component. It far outperforms its contemporary epic part version, the Averter. It's just a very solid part. But they're nerfing the crap out of it, so here we go. So Omomori's charge now restores only when fully depleted. You remember earlier in the conversation when I was like, you dodge in and out of combat and you effectively have it up at all times. Fuck and that, my dudes. No, now the Omori must break before it recharges. So it means that if you escape a battle and your Omori has not been cracked, it means the next battle you get into, it will crack, and then it will be down for the count as it recharges. That's a huge nerf. In reality, if you look at any of the other numbers here, you can pretty much ignore you can ignore it. That's a huge nerf. That in and of itself is probably gonna more than balance this thing out. But let's keep reading. Charge volume increased from 300 to 400 points. Okay, so charge volume is the durability of that damage shield, basically. So originally they started when the game came out, it was like 370, then they nerfed it down to 300 because, like, whoops, that just means that, it's double 370 in durability, which was 740 durability added to whatever was attached to it. So like, whoops, no, we're going to nerf it down to 300. They're bringing it back up to 400 because of the fact that the Omomori must crack now. The output of the current charge value has been added to the icon. So I guess what they're saying is, instead of the icon slowly going down, and you have to look to see the percentage, you're going to see you'll actually be able to see a percentage number, so you know when it's about to break. And they're just increasing the power score. For whatever reason, they just think that it needs even more power score. From 400 to 600, fair enough. Let's see what they have to say. Its current form modules, too strong. Yeah. It allows you to absorb a huge amount of damage without much effort on the part of the player. This change should make playing with it more dependent on the attention and skills of the player. Now it'll be important to keep track of the current charge and be more thoughtful about what parts you attach to the module. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Right now, more or less, you attach the Omori to the cabin, you attach it to whatever's around it, you don't really care. And so then you eat a big hit, goes to the Omori, whatever, it recharges. Now, you're going to try to use those nodes to only affect the parts that you specifically want protected, and you may not even Omori your cabin, simply because you don't want to split that damage protection at all, right? Because the Omori will crack too soon. So, interesting change. It's obviously a nerf. Is this going to prevent the Omori from being used? Probably not. No. Will people consider going to the Averter over the Omori? No. Continuing on, I'll just tell you that right now. No. The answer is no. N-O period. Omori is far stronger than the Averter. The Relics. Oh my goodness, they're making changes to the Relics. Scorpion. Spread increase rate during weapon rotation reduced by 43%. Wow. That's a buff. Aiming speed after turning or firing from the weapon is increased by 27%. So that means that your crosshairs are 27% faster to come on target, meaning your cone of fire is reduced 27% faster. That's amazing. Spread rate increased during weapons rotation, reduced. So that means as your weapon spins around all willy-nilly after you've been rammed by a dog, the spread rate increases has been reduced. That's just a pure buff to the Scorpion. That's just pure buffs. Comment: with these changes, we were compensating for the lack of accuracy of the weapon had on wheeled vehicles after reworking the effect on speed of firing accuracy. So there's the thing. A lot of people have... the problem with this game is hovers. A lot of people have recognized that. They mentioned that in a lot of the comments. But the problem with this game is hovers. Period. It's like they tried to nerf the gun for hovers, and in doing so, what happened? They're like, whoops. It became unplayable for non-hovers. And here's the thing. I know what you guys are thinking. When was the last time you saw a Scorpion on the ground? Like, effing never. So, the RL9 Helicon. This is the newest relic to the game. It is the triple barrel rocket launcher, and it is actually doing quite well. It's pretty phenomenal. Durability increased from 384 to 422, so apparently they just want it to do better. Do better, Senator? No, I'm seriously, that's crazy. The maximum bonus of the perk is gained in 0.75 seconds instead of 1 second. So, the Helicon is an interesting weapon. One, normally in Crossout, they would have taken its weapon properties and made that the perk, but they didn't. This weapon has two technical perks if you look at the weapon properties. One, fires 3 rockets. It is just like the Waltz, except the Waltz is a negative press weapon. You have to charge it up, let go, and fire. And then it also has squiggly bit rockets. It's crazy. It's just fucking insane to try and use. This is the opposite. You left mouse button, it make weapon go. Weapon go boom boom down range on left mouse button. Click on this one. Additionally, instead of the rockets spiraling all willy-nilly style, using hope as a viable strategy that your rockets land on something, they fire on predictable trajectory arcs. However, the Helicon has 3 different rockets. Each rocket fired is entirely different from the last. The first rocket is an AP projectile for whatever reason. Should probably have started with the fire projectile, but whatever. The first one is an AP projectile. It is a bullet. It does not do explosive damage. It is a bullet. It works just like bullets do, and it does decent damage. It's actually a pretty heavy-hitting bullet. The second shot, or the second rocket, is a heating rocket. It does very low damage, but heats your target. And the third is a HE rocket. By the way, they should really either swap the HE and the... Never mind. It doesn't matter. That's basically what the Helicon does. Helicon does mad damage. In addition to that, the Helicon has a perk. Presently, the perk activates after 1 second of flight time, which is to say, it means that you'll have to be very far away from your opponent for that to kick in. Like, with how fast the Helicon's projectiles travel and all that good stuff like that, they have to be somewhere in the neighborhood of, I'd say, 200 meters away, 250 meters away for the perk to kick in. And what the perk does is you do more damage. It's bonus damage. It activates binarily, I believe, at a certain point. Like the distance traveled, it just activates and then you do double damage or something. So the Helicon's a really solid gun. They're just buffing it. Pure buff. More dura, faster perk gain. And that means that it's not that the perk isn't on every shot. By what I mean by faster perk gain is they can be your opponent can be closer to you, and you will gain the effects of the perk, of the bonus damage on the perk, which is great. That's a huge buff. Huge buff to 2 huge relics. Oof. All boosters. Acceleration efficiency increased by 15%. Good, because there's a couple of boosters out there that suck, and those are everything but Hermes. Now the boosters' fuel supply is increased with the help of the ammo pack and expanded ammo pack. This is a shadow nerf to the cockpit. Standard fuel reserves of the Aviator reduced from 60-50, Blast Off from 80 to 65, and Hermes from 100 to 80. So, in the comment, they say that this is to compensate for the fact that acceleration gradually decreases after reaching 120 kilometers an hour. Okay. Sure. Long story short, you can use fewer boosters to achieve better results. This will help with booster Leviathans, I'm sure. Yeah. And now you can just have boosters with ammunition. Fine. The reason why I say there's a shadow nerf to the cockpit is because presently, as of the time I say this out loud with my mouth, the only way to get more booster fuel is with the cockpit. Now that they're homogenizing booster fuel with ammunition crates, little bit of nerf. Billy. So for all of us who do not know, Billy has 3 perks. I'm sorry, 3 active abilities. Dang it, I'm just fucking it up. 1 active ability, and 3 perks. There, done. All right. This is not changing the active ability. This is just changing 2 of his perks. Perk number 1, they're changing, meaning removing the 10% rotation rate on Billy. This is a good thing. Don't worry, I'll get there. And then they're changing it to 10% increase in weapon durability. Woo-wee! Now that's a spicy meatball. That's a good change. That's a good change. And the second change is the self-destruct damage bonus, which does nothing right now at 5%, is increased to 30%. Now that's a good change. There we go. That is actually not useless. So in my co-driver tier list, I mentioned that Billy has a slathering of perks that don't work well together, and his self-destruct bonus is literally nothing. It doesn't do anything. So now 30% on self-destruct, that isn't bad. That isn't bad. You shouldn't obviously pick Billy because you want to go kill yourself, but that is not bad. That is a perk. We've now entered the realm of it actually affecting a battle, and then we have the weapon rate change. So rotation rate change. So for those of us who don't know, the reason why they're saying this is because they're saying Billy's rotation speed bonus was not useful for weapons that worked well in conjunction with his talent. Machine guns. Not a single machine gun in this fucking game needs this. None of them. Miniguns do. Miniguns require that, but that's not enough. Most people who would use Billy's 10% weapon rotation speed would people who use mammoths or anybody who uses, well, more or less any slow-ass turning weapon, and they need it to turn faster, and that's cannons, and that doesn't work with his active, and it just... So Billy was kind of a mess. They're changing it. Now, 10% weapon dura. That works all the damn time. That's good. That's good stuff. Continuing on. Yuki, the passive skill Isolated Systems, now reduces the strength of slowing effects by 40% instead of 20%. So in my tier list, damn it, goddamn these people, every single time I release an effing tier list, they come up and change these things, so now my tier list is out of goddamn date. So Yuki's perk that reduces the amount of effect that slowing effects have on your build, so let's say someone with a Spark, Jiboku, or whatever the hell hits your build, well, right now, as I say in game, it's basically doesn't do anything. It does nothing. You're gonna get caught. It doesn't change shit. You're gonna get fucked. 40%. That's actually not bad. That actually means that the first few ticks are gonna be almost entirely ineffective against your build, because I believe it starts at 6% with the Spark and like 4% with the Flash, something like that. But yeah, no, seriously, that's huge. That's actually a really, really big buff. I mean, it does something now. So these changes to perks, making them do something, really good stuff. Phobos, my personal favorite co-driver. The passive skill Signal Jammer now reduces invisibility detection range by 20% instead of 10%. Okay, that's not the biggest, but I'll take it. I mean, this isn't really going to change that dang much. Remember, you can get 10% invisibility detection rate reduction on your cloaking device itself. So if you have a Chameleon, or Chameleon Mark 1 or Chameleon Mark 2, you can actually get 10% off of that. So this is actually, stacking. You get 20% range reduction on this, and you can get 10% or so on your actual fused Chameleon, and that actually adds up. So that's not bad. Maybe you'll be able to get in long enough to actually activate his perk. All right, there you go. Did it. 40 minutes later, read all the patch notes. It's going to be interesting. Yeah, I'm actually interested in seeing a couple of these changes. I do have an Argus, and I want to see the Argus used to see if it actually has any shot at, well, doing its supposed job. In reality, the Argus just needs to, well, not just, it needs a much faster cooldown. Like, the Argus's cooldown needs to be more comparable to the things that it's trying to stop. In other words, mines. If someone has Jibokus, you should be able to launch the Argus basically when they launch Jibokus at you, things like that. Good buffs to the Impulse, good buffs all around across the majority of things, actually. Only a couple of nerfs. Nerfs to Lances, nerfs to Catalina, nerfs to the... Nope. The Tusk. Nerf to the Skinner. Buffs to everything else mentioned, though, I believe. Oh, I'm sorry. I somehow missed this. Good thing I went back. Jeez. The Charbitus. So for those of us who are unfamiliar with the Charbitus, that's right. I'm actually going to have to go back and talk about this thing. This is the second legendary melee weapon in Crossout, and it is dog shit. It's so bad. Whatever. So, they're buffing it. The damage area while the perk is active increased by 20%. So, they're not increasing the damage, they're not going back on that damage nerf that the fucking weapon comes with its own self-referential damage nerf, whatever. But when the perk is active and the weapon splays out all wide like a fan, it will increase its active area by 20%. Their comment is this change should increase the effectiveness of the saw when implementing its perk, as it will allow you to deal damage to the parts mounted deep inside the enemy's vehicle. So, for those of us unfamiliar, the Charbitus blade does penetrate. It is the second melee weapon that does? Third. So, the buzzsaw penetrates one pin, for those of us who didn't know. Now you do. So if someone comes at you with a buzzsaw, the buzzsaw's hitbox and its damage box is so that if you can actually run into them in such a way you can actually penetrate right through a one-pin bumper. So if you're trying to defend against a buzzsaw with a one-pin bumper, you actually don't. It just hits the part behind it. The Charbitus, the other weapon is the Tempura, if you're wondering. You're like, well, there's 3 melee weapons that penetrate? The second one is the Tempura. Even though it's not necessarily a melee weapon, it is technically-ish a melee weapon. And it does hit all the items in a line in front of it with thermal damage. The Charbitus is similar to the Buzzsaw insofar as that its hurt box extends further than its hitbox. So what does that mean? That means that you can ram into someone and it will shove your melee weapons deeper into their build and damage. You'll damage multiple parts. You'll hit things in those hard to reach back teeth. The problem is that it's too thin. You'll see. When you get in and play with the thing, it's just going to be bad. Every single time you've ever seen a video that's like showcased the Charbitus, it's always been poor. And yes, if you hear a ringing in the background, that's my air conditioning. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's always been poor. I apologize for the air conditioning thing. But it's not going to get much better. The Charbitus is not that good yet. Will this help? Sure. It's a buff. But the sheer fact that this weapon came out in this battle pass, people built a whole bunch of them, and it is still dookie dog shit. So much to the point that they're trying to buff its range at which it can affect things. Lets you know that the Charbitus ain't exactly doing what they expected it to be doing. So, especially considering the power score, right? Like melee weapons have a very, very niche field of effect, right? Lower power scores you can tear right through people because they don't have bumpers. Higher power scores, basically everyone's made of bumpers, and yes, they did nerf bumpers recently, but it's not enough to make the Charbitus that effective. So we'll keep an eye out on it. It's a buff. Shrug. Charbitus is still meh. I mean, it's so meh that I'm building those Cyclones from the Battle Pass. I'm not going to get bonus Charbitus. Why would I do that? Yeah, there we go. I don't think I missed anything else. Nope. All right, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, comments below, dislike, everything, blah, blah, blah. Thank you for your time. See you in Crossout. Peace.